So can you see the screen, Mr. Ghosh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. So let us just revise what we learnt in the previous class, then we'll start the periods of English literature. Now in the previous classes, we discussed English literature starting here. In KVS or NVS, PGT and TGT English, the syllabus for written examination, we have to cover reading comprehension, writing ability, grammar and literature. So all these four are part of your English subject. In NVS, it has 80 marks. And these four sections are very, very important. We cannot neglect any one of these sections. Most of the English literature students, they will concentrate on English literature part only. They may neglect grammar, writing ability, reading comprehension, or they may overjudge themselves that they would definitely score marks. But that is not the right approach. We should give equal importance to all these four areas. And in the previous class, we completed the reading comprehension, and then we understood how to comprehend a given passage. In examination, you are going to get 3 to 4 reading comprehensions. Under each reading comprehension, you may get 3 to 4 questions. Our purpose is we should not lose marks in the easiest area. And there are 4 types of questions generally you are going to get under reading comprehension. First one is direct question. Second one is indirect question or background question. Third one is analytical question. Fourth one is vocabulary question. Under vocabulary, you may be asked antonym or synonym or one word substitute, or they may ask you noun form or adjective forms. Then we completed the writing ability section. Under this writing ability section, which comes in section B of the syllabus, we have studied three different topics. First one is factual description of an event or incident or report or process writing. Then we studied letter writing. Under letter writing, we completed business or official letters, and then we completed letters to editors, and then we completed application for job with CV, and then we completed about article writing, debate and speech writing. And as you are going to appear in a MCQ type examination, you are not going to be asked to write these topics in a theory or in a paragraph manner. So what we did is we completed the syllabus of writing ability, starting from factual description to article writing, speech writing and debate writing. Then we practiced MCQ questions from these areas, and we have to complete now one more area is grammar part, that will take up with 1 or 2 classes of literature part. So in this class, now we are going to start the periods of English literature. So English literature, the birth of English literature and the age of the English literature, we should know. This is a background information for the entire English literature. Though your English literature syllabus or the syllabus which is given in NVS and KVS English literature starts with Shakespeare's works. So this is the syllabus for your literature part. This is in section D. That means section A, section B, section C and section D all have weightage, proper weightage. So we should never neglect the remaining 3 sections also. So if we just glance through this literature part, the syllabus for the literature in NVS and KVS, we have Shakespeare's works. So there is lot of confusion, ambiguity, unclear what works are important, what to study, how to study, that will crack down in a very simple and easy manner. Then we have romantic period, example Shelley, Wordsworth, Keats and Coleridge, Byron, all those people will come in this romantic period. And then in 19th and 20th century American and English literature, example Robert Frost, Hemingway, Whitman, Hawthorne, Emily Dickinson, Bernard Shaw, Arthur Miller, etc. So we are going to go with the 19th and 20th century American and English literature part also. Then we have modern Indian writing in English, example Anita Desai, Vikram Seth, Nissim Ezekiel, K.M. Daruwala, Ruskin Bond, R.K. Narayan, Mulkraj Anand, Kushwant Singh and even will complete Chetan Bhagat also. Then the last one is modern writing in English from other parts of the world, example Latin American, Africa, Australia, South Asia. All these parts we will definitely cover because already once the syllabus was done for the previous batch. Okay, so this is the syllabus. The syllabus looks very simple, very easy, but when you break down into small pieces, we need to study thoroughly in each and every part of this syllabus. Now today is a general introduction for the entire literature part, which you are going to study hereafter in your English literature part, that means section D part. Now for a basic understanding, we have to understand the beginning of English literature and what is the most modern literature, that is called postmodernism. Okay, so what we do is we'll start with this old English literature and then we'll try to complete middle English literature today, and then we will go with the Renaissance, Elizabethan age, and then we'll enter into the Shakespeare. So Shakespeare comes where only we'll come to know when we go in a systematic manner. Okay, so Goshi, shall I start the periods of English literature?
Yes, sir, definitely, sir.
Right. Priti Madam, good evening.
Good evening, sir. Sorry, sir, I forgot that today is English literature class.
We are all exhausted, correct, Priti? Priti ma'am, am I audible? Right, fine, let us start. So we are going to, I said we are all exhausted, correct?
No, sir, actually, I forgot. Actually, Sunday and Friday, Wednesday part I remember, but the Tuesday part I forgot that today is the class.
Right, no problem, no. Right. So we are starting with periods of English literature. Let us start the class. So English literature and periods of English literature. Try to understand, English literature was written, but we are trying to find out, categorize, compartmentalize a compartment that literature into different ages. So English literature periods divide in this format. You may find some difference, but this is the most, what you call, appropriate division of periods of English literature or periods in English literature. 450, I will explain these things in a very simple manner, then I will give you some time to memorize and I will ask you questions based upon the periods of English literature. 1 or 2 questions you are definitely going to get from these periods of English literature. They will tell you the age, they will ask you the period, or they will give you the period age like 450 to 1066, and they will give you 4 options about the different ages. So you need to know the combination properly. Okay, this is a mental exercise. 450 AD to 1066 is known as Old English literature. Then 1066 to 1500 is Middle English literature. Then from 1500 to 1660 is the Renaissance or Renaissance, and it is also known as Early Modern period of English literature. And this Renaissance or Renaissance or early modern period is subdivided into 4 different ages. First one is from 1558 to 1603 is the Elizabethan age. Then 1603 to 1625 is the Jacobean age. Then 1625 to 1649 is the Caroline age. Then from 1649 to 1660, the Commonwealth Period or Puritan Interregnum. Then from 1660 to 1798, this period is known as the Neoclassical Period. And this period is again subdivided into 3 different periods or ages. From 1660 to 1700, it is known as the Restoration or Age of Dryden. Then from 1700 to 1745, it is called as Age of Pope or the Augustan Age. Then from 1745 to 1784, it is known as Age of Sensibility or Age of Johnson. Then from 1798 to 1832, it is known as the Romantic Period or Age of Wordsworth. Then from 1832 to 1901, the Victorian Period. 1901 to 1914, the Edwardian period, and it is also known as the period of confusion or the confused period. Then from 1914, the modern period begins, and this is again divided. 1910 to 1936 is the Georgian period, and then 1945 onwards, postmodern period or postmodernism. definitely you are going to get 1 or 2 questions with a different combinations from this chart which I have given on the screen. So all of you go through this information and I'll ask you to read loud. First we'll start with the Priti Map. Priti Ma'am, can you read the age and the name of the period?
Yes, sir. 450 to 166 Old English Literature, 166 to 1500 Middle English Literature, 1500s to 1660 the Renaissance or Early Modern Period, 1558 to 1603 Elizabethan Age, 1603 to 1625 Jacobean Age, 1625 to 1649 Caroline Age, 1649 to 1660 the Commonwealth Period or Puritan Interregnum, 1660 to 1798 the Neoclassical Period, 1660 to 1700 the Restoration Age or Age of Dryden, 1700 to 1745 Age of Pope the Augustan Age, 1745 to 1784 Age of Sensibility or Age of Johnson, 1798 to 1832 the Romantic Period or Age of Wordsworth, 1832 to 1901 the Victorian Period, 1901 to 1914 the Edwardian Period, it's also known as Confused Period, 1914 the Modern Period, 1910 to 1936 the Georgian Period, and 1945 to till date postmodernism.
Good. Now, Ghosh, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Tell me, what is the age which is known as Age of Pope? I want the years. Age of Pope.
Age of Pope. It
Locate.
is from 1700 to 1745.
Right. Why it is called Age of Pope?
Pope means, as we know, the full name of Pope is Alexander Pope. I think this writer belongs to this age, and he has written many writings, and he has great fame in this age, and that is why it is called Age of Pope.
Okay, so that means some ages are based upon the popular writers of that period. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now come back to this part. 450 to 1166 is known as Old English Literature. Correct, Ghosh?
Yes, sir.
Tell me, what is the age for Middle English Literature?
It is from 166 to 1500.
Okay, then what is the Early Modern? Ghosh.
Early modern, 1914.
No, here it is given, see, Early Modern. 1500 to
Oh, early
16
modern. Oh, 1500 to 1660.
Right. Elizabethan Age?
1558 to 1603.
Okay, and then Jacobean Age?
1603 to 1625.
Caroline Age?
1625 to 1649.
Okay, then Puritan Interregnum?
1649 to 1660.
Where do you get Shakespeare?
It is in Elizabethan age.
Okay, right. Where do you get Chaucer?
Chaucer, it is in Old English literature.
Right. So now we will go to the next slide because we are trying to understand the periods of English literature with the popular figures of those ages. So we are trying
Sir,
to
how can we remember the periodical times of those ages in a sequence?
Okay, you want the technique to remember the sequence?
Yes, sir.
The technique is you have to write down with your own hands in your notebook and then you have to memorize that. And how do you memorize that? You need to write down the names of popular figures, popular works after the age or under the age, so that when you prepare your own chart, when you prepare your own notes and when you revise that again and again, after a few revisions, you will remember this one. You can't imprint this and you can't tell you right now. So you need to work on this one.
Okay.
It takes time. Okay. So let us go to the next slide. Now we are going to discuss the periods of English literature, and the first one is Old English period, and it is also known as Anglo-Saxon period. What it is known as, Priti? Old English period?
Anglo-Saxon period.
Right. So from 450 AD to 1066 AD, the whatever the literature comes are written in this age, in between 450 to 1066 AD, that is known as Old English period, and it is also known as Anglo-Saxon period. Now Preeti, tell me, why it is also known as Anglo-Saxons or Anglo-Saxon period? Preeti,
Ask me again, please.
why this age is known as Anglo-Saxon period?
Because at this time, Saxons, the group of peoples are ruling this part of the area. That's why.
Right, correct. So now, Ghosh, am I audible clearly? Ghoshji.
Yes, sir.
Now, there is one more thing we have to add in our preparation. One, the age. That means like 450 AD to 1066 AD. That we have to remember. Then we have to remember the name of the period, and then the important writers in that period, important works in that period, as well as who is the ruler in that period or who is the ruler during that period. And if there are more than one ruler, then we have to remember who were the rulers in that period. So even the rulers are also important, because they can give you a question based upon the kings and queens who ruled during that period, and they may ask you who is the ruler of the Elizabethan period. Maybe very simple question. Who is the ruler of the Elizabethan period? Ghosh?
Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth.
Right. So likewise also questions come. So you need to join, or you need to combine all these informations under each and every period or age.
And sir, do you need to know the social background of that age?
Yes.
We have to know till.
Yes. Social background, literary background also we have to understand. Then only we can understand why the writer has written such kind of work of art.
Okay.
Right. Now, we'll try to understand the history, not in a very elaborate manner. So, who invaded this England or land of English? Germanic tribes, those are Jutes, Angles and Saxons. So, when they invaded this England or land of English, then this period is known as Anglo-Saxon period. That means when people from different nationalities, different countries, when they conquer the land, that period can also be named under them. Like we also have a British rule like that. And these are Germanic tribes, Jutes, Angles and Saxons. In this, there is one very famous, very popular historical figure, Alfred the Great. He is the king of the West Saxons from 871 to 886 and king of Anglo-Saxons from 886 until his death in 899. Okay, so Alfred the Great comes in the Old English period or the Anglo-Saxon period, and that is 450 AD to 1066 AD. Right? Then what happened after this Alfred the Great? There is one more popular figure which is associated or connected to the Old English period is William the Conqueror. His name is William of the Normandy, but he has become, or he had got the title, the William the Conqueror. He came from France after Anglo-Saxons occupied. William the Conqueror occupied the England, and he is the William of the Normandy. And what happened during the Battle of Hastings, 1066? This is the dividing period from the Old English and the Middle English. Battle of Hastings. And in that Battle of Hastings, William, Duke of Normandy, conquered the land of England from Anglo-Saxon rulers, and he became the King of England. This is the historical background of the Old English period. They may not ask you the questions from this part, but at least you should remember the history of England began from the Anglo-Saxons, and then it has come to the William of Normandy. He is the Duke of Normandy, and he became the King of England in 1166. That is the dividing factor which divides the Old English period and the Middle English period. This is the history. Just remember the names Alfred the Great and the William the Conqueror. He was from France. And the Battle of Hastings happened in 1101. 1066. Next, let us go to the literature part. What was the literature in the Middle English period? Okay, or in the Old English period. What was the literature composed by the writers in the Old English period? So it was impossible to understand English of this period, mostly written in Latin language. So though it is considered as Old English period, but most of the literature was written in the Latin language, and it was quite impossible to read and understand what was being written in the or during the Old English period. And what was the theme of those literary works? Focuses on heroic ideals, wars, fights, Vikings travel based on oral storytelling. So whatever they heard, whatever they listened, those were actually depicted and those were actually written in their Old English literature. And written to please aristocracy, kings, queens, and etc. So whatever they have written, whatever orally or writing part, they are written because they want to please the kings and queens of those days, so that they will get money or source of living. And those were actually very much connected to the paganism and Christianity. So the religious books, mostly they glorify the religious beliefs, mostly they glorifies the kings and queens, conquers and beauty of the king, but almost all those books were very, very difficult to understand and read. Mostly those are written to please this aristocracy. So what is paganism? A religion other than one of the main world religions, specifically a non-Christian or pre-Christian religion. So other religions which are not Christianity, which don't believe in Christianity, may be considered as paganism. You just understand this part of the Old English literature. It is very, very difficult to read and write. So in examination, they may ask you a question, which age or which period literature is too difficult to understand? Then that is Old English period literature. Then let us go to the works of what? What are the major works and who are the major authors during this Old English literature? We have some important poets and important names or figures, literary figures. Bede is a poet. He had written Cadmon's Hind. The pronunciation might be different. He had written Charms, Cadman Hind, Charms, and this is the collection of poems. So what is this collection of what is this Cadman Hymns Charms? This is a collection of poems written by the Bede, and he is a poet, and these are the first poems written in English literature. Then what is actually the content? Hardships of the average Anglo-Saxon warrior. So what is this Anglo-Saxon warrior used to do? They are the Germanic tribes. They travel on sea in those warships, and they always fight in the alien lands and foreign lands. So when they return, they tell the stories to their fellow friends, and those people, when they get this kind of information, they try to write the charms or the poems depicting the life of these Anglo-Saxon warriors. Based upon these Anglo-Saxon warriors, there are two important titles or poems. One is the Seafarer. What is this Seafarer? It's a poem discusses about Anglo-Saxon warriors' struggle. A man describes his horrid life on the sea. When they travel on the sea for months together to conquer the foreign lands, what kind of problems they faced. All those things are explained in this poem. The name of the poem is the Seafarer. And the second one is the Wanderer. These are the available titles or available books or available poems for our reference. So what is the main theme of the Wanderer? A man tells his tale of being put into exile and losing all his fellow warriors on Lord. So you need to remember these lines exactly. So the theme of Seafarer is a man describes his horrid life on the sea, and the Wanderer is a man tells his tale of being put into exile and losing all his fellow warriors and Lord. So their plight, their misery, their problems were shown in this Seafarer and Wanderer. Oldest references we have in English literature for the Anglo-Saxon warriors. Then the Wife's Lament. There is one more old poem, the Wife's Lament or the Wife's Complaint. It is a poem, or it is also called as Elegy. Then the Battle of Maldon, celebrating the real Battle of Maldon of 1991. Then we have Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, like our magazines know, Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, and the King Alfred was the one who started this Anglo-Saxon Chronicle or associated with this Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, and it is the prose, not poetry. It is written in prose. is a collection of annals, stories in Old English, chronicling the history of the Anglo-Saxons. So mostly whatever these warriors, Anglo-Saxon warriors did, and when they explained or when they narrated their stories to their fellow beings, all those things become part of the English literature during the Old English period. Okay, now what is a major work of art during the Old English period? Beowulf. It is an epic poem. We already discussed the epics in English literature are Paradise Lost, written by John Milton, and then we have one more epic, what do you call, no, Keats wanted to complete that epic Hyperion, but it has become incomplete because of Keats' unfortunate death or sudden death. That is called Hyperion. The name of the John Keats epic poem was or is Hyperion, but that is a fragmentary epic. So in modern English literature, there is only one epic, and that is Paradise Lost, which is divided into 12 books. But in case in exam, if they ask you a question, which is the first epic in Old English, or which is an epic given below options, if you find this Beowulf poem, then definitely you have to go with that option, because Beowulf is an epic poem and it was written, composed in the 8th century, and that is the first English epic in Old English literature. You have to read the question thoroughly. If they give you a question, which is the epic in modern English literature, or which is the epic in English literature, if you find the answer options Milton's Paradise Lost, select that one. If they give you the question, which is the first English epic in Old English, and if they give you option Beowulf, then Beowulf is the correct answer for the question. You need to read the question properly. Now what is the theme, or what is the content of this Beowulf poem is, the protagonist is Beowulf, a hero of the Gates, comes to the aid of Hrothgar, king of the Danes, whose great hall, Heriot, is plagued by the monster Grendel. Beowulf kills Grendel with his bare hands, then kills Grendel's mother with a giant sword that he found in her lair. So this is the entire stories just in a small piece of paragraph. If you want to watch, if you want to know about this epic poem Beowulf, already recording classes are available. In that I have shown the entire video. Even Beowulf, story is also there, movie is also there, you can watch. So examination point of view, one question may come or two questions may come in examination point of view. The first question is, which is the first English epic in Old English? Then the answer is Beowulf. And then Beowulf killed monster, and the name of the monster is, Ghoshji, what is the name of the monster Beowulf killed in the story Beowulf?
It is
Grendel.
Grendel.
Grendel is a monster. Okay, so the monster in the poem Beowulf is Grendel. These are the two questions mostly I come across. Generally, they will not ask deepest questions from the Old English. Okay, so this is about the Old English literature part. And then before I begin the Middle English, if you have any questions related to the Old English period, you can ask me. Ghosh.
No sir. No sir.
What about you, Priti? Priti ma'am, are there?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions with Old English literature?
No, sir.
Right. Now, if we see the practice questions, then only I'll come to know how much you understood. Where is the question? Where is the question? Where is the question paper? I have given, but let us do one question. Periods of English literature. Periods. Where is periods of English literature? Okay. Can you see the screen? Is it visible to you?
No question comes, sir. Only that previous page.
Okay, right. So what I was doing is, okay, I am using Google Slides to teach you. so that if I want to share anything else, that is not allowing me. Let me just stop this sharing and I'll try to share other tabs. Okay, now right, got it. So technology, I have to learn. Now I suppose you can see the screen of the question paper. Am I right?
No, sir. No, sir. Can't see.
Not see?
No.
Priti ma'am?
Yes, sir.
What are you watching on your screen? Is the screen sharing not done?
No, sir, not visible.
Wait. I'm trying. Other tabs, period of English literature, share. Something went wrong. If you are sharing to a meeting, please select the current tab and try again. Share the other tabs. Go to meet present. Wait a minute. Why it is not? Because I am using Google Slides. No, it is not accepting me to share. No problem. Well, here no. We will duplicate the slide. Select tool. Okay. All right. Just give me a second. Where am I? Now can you see the screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now. Okay. First question to Ghosh and second question to Priti ma'am. Tell me, Priti ma'am, what is the first question to Ghosh? Sorry. Ghosh, read the question.
Identify the period of Old English in English literature. It will be 400 to 166.
400 to 166. What is the answer? Tell me again.
It will be 400 to 166.
Priti ma'am, what is the period of Old English literature?
Middle English, sir.
Old English. First question. Can you see the first question on screen?
Yes, sir.
So what is the answer to the question? Read the question.
450 to 166.
Correct. Goji, the
Oh,
period,
yes, sir. Yes, sir. It will be second option. Yes.
the period of Old English in English literature is 450 to 1066. So
Yes, sir. Yes,
you
sir.
have to read the question patiently, read all the options, then answer, because answers are there. Just now we studied about the Old English period, correct, Ghosh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, right. So don't worry, let us do this in a slow manner. Okay. Preeti ma'am, next question.
Identify the period of Middle English literature in English literature. It will be, sir, 1066 to 1500.
What about you, Ghosh?
Yes, sir. The last option, 1066 to 1500.
Okay, 1066 to 1500. Let us see the slide. 1066 to 1500. Correct. Now let me do one more, not one more, two more, three more questions. We'll practice. Then only you will understand. Only thing is I have to copy and paste from the Google form. I'll take 2 minutes time, because practice is more important than what I'm teaching. Again I come back. Where am I? Okay, here on Google Slides, right? Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just a minute. I'm trying adjusting. You can go through the question if you can see the question properly. Okay, Suma ma'am, are you in the class?
Yes, sir.
Right, you can also go through English literature. If you want to become English PGT, you can try for English PGT also. Goji,
Yes, sir.
read the third question.
Identify the period of the Renaissance or early modern in English literature. It is, I think, the first option, 1066 to 1400.
Preeti ma'am? Preeti?
Yes, sir. Actually, the Renaissance period. Wait, sir.
Okay, we'll go with in a systematic manner. Now you see this question, Preeti. Old English period starts from 450 to 1066, correct?
Yes, sir.
Then Middle English literature 1066 to 1500, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now follow the same sequence. There is some gap, that's why you are getting confused, I suppose. Now find out. Renaissance or early modern in English literature, period. Both of you.
1500 to 1660.
1500 to 1660. Okay, Ghoshji.
Yes, sir. I think also 1500 to 1660.
Right. Let us see the periods of English literature. 1500 to 1660 is the Renaissance or early modern. Good. Now let us go back to the next question.
Renaissance or early modern, it is, sir, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Ghosh.
Renaissance or early modern, it is from 1500 to 1660, means it is in between Old English and Middle English literature.
No. Old English literature is the beginning is 450 AD to 1066. Then 1066 to 1500 is the
Yes.
Middle English literature. Then from 1500 to 1660 is
Yes.
the Renaissance or early modern.
Okay.
Okay. Whatever you have read
Yes, sir.
or whatever you are listening to this class, immediately if you go with the question answer session, that will cement your information. By committing mistakes only, we learn so many things, Ghosh.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Next question, Preeti. Identify the period of Elizabethan age in English literature.
Fifteen hundred 58 to 1603.
1558 to 1603.
3.
Right. What about you, Ghosh?
Option C.
1558 to 1603. Okay, let us come back and let us see the chart again. 1500 to 1660 is the Renaissance and early modern. What is the question? Period of Elizabethan age we are particularly discussing. So what is the period of Elizabethan age? 1558 to 1603. So the answer 1558 to 1603 is correct. Now, Ghoshji, tell me the age of Old English literature, the age of Middle English literature. Tell me the age quickly.
450 to 100. Sorry, 1000. It is Old English.
Middle English.
Middle English. Middle English.
Tell me what is the
It
age
is
for Middle English?
from 1066 to 1500.
We'll go back again. Read the questions. The Old English age is 450 to 1060, correct?
Yes.
Then Middle English literature is 1066 to 1500. Ghosh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Then Renaissance is 1500 to 1660.
Yes, sir.
Then Elizabethan age is 1558 to 1603.
Yes.
Next set of questions. Priti ma'am.
Yes, sir. Sixth number.
Fifth number. Question number 5.
Identify the period of Jacobean age in English literature. Jacobean age.
Begin from the beginning. 450 to 1066
66.
Middle English
Then
period.
1066 to 1500 Middle English.
Okay. 1500 to.
Then 1500 to 1660 Elizabethan age.
No, you first tell me the Renaissance and early modern entire period, Preeti.
Renaissance 1558.
1552.
1500.
We'll again go back. Now see. 1500 to 1660 is the Renaissance and early modern.
1558 to 1603 Elizabethan age.
Then?
Okay, 1603 to 1625 Jacobean age.
Right. So what is the age of Jacobian, Ghosh?
1600
1603 to 1625.
1625.
1603 is to 1625 is known as Jacobian age in English literature, right? Next, sixth question. Identify the period of Caroline age or Caroline age.
1625 to 1649.
1625 to 1649. Is it correct, Ghosh?
Yes, yes. it
Tell
is
me
correct.
from the beginning. Old English, Middle English, Renaissance and Elizabeth period, Jacobean period, Caroline period. Try to recollect.
Yes. Yes. From Old English, 450 to 166, and then after Old English,
1066 to
1066 to 1500.
1500. Middle English period.
Then 1500 to
16.
1500 to
Third one. Okay, again we'll go back. Now go see and read.
First Old English literature, 450 to 166.
Correct.
Then Middle English literature, 1066 to 1500.
Correct.
Then Renaissance or early modern, 1500 to 1660.
Correct.
Then Elizabethan, 1558 to 1603.
Correct.
Then Jacobean, 1603 to 1625.
Correct.
Then Caroline, 1625 to 1649.
So what is the Caroline age? 1625 to
1625 to 1649.
right. So let us go to the question. So Caroline age is 1625 to 1649. Tell me, what is the next age? What is the name of the next age?
After Caroline, Renaissance.
After Caroline, what is the next age? Preeti?
After Caroline's are thinking, wait.
Come from the beginning. Start from the beginning again.
Old English period.
Age.
450 to 1066 Old English period.
Correct.
1066 to 1500 is Middle English period. 1500 to 1660 is the Renaissance period. 1660 to wait, sir. 1660.
We'll go back. It takes time. No problem. We'll do. Now look at the screen and tell. Again repeat.
450 to 1066 Old English literature. 1066 to 1500 Middle English literature. 1500 to 1660 the Renaissance period. here I got confused, sir, because it starts from 1558.
So 8 years is gap here.
1558 to 1603 Elizabethan age. Then 1606 to 1620. Yes, sir. 1606 3 to 1625 Jacobean age. 1625 to 1649 Caroline age.
Right. Then
And
what is the next age?
then comes to the neoclassical period.
Commonwealth period.
Commonwealth.
1649 to 1660 is the Commonwealth period or Puritan intergram. The question can be framed like this. They will give you Elizabethan age, Jacobean age, Caroline age, Commonwealth period in a disorder, and they will ask you to arrange it in the right order. So you should also know the proper sequence of these ages in the Renaissance or early modern. Okay. Ghosh, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So
Yes, sir.
again, please read the first age to up to the Commonwealth period.
Yes, sir. 450 to 1066 Old English literature. Then 1066 to 1500 Middle English literature. Then 1500 to 1666. This is Renaissance or early modern.
1580 to 1660 is the Renaissance.
1558 to 1603 but 1500 to 1660 it is Renaissance.
Correct. Next.
So let me read from the first from the beginning. One second.
Do it.
450 to 1066 Old English literature. Then 1066 to 1500 Middle English literature. Then 1500 to 1666. 1500 to 1660. Renaissance or early modern. Then 1558 to 1603 Elizabethan age. Then 1603 to 1625 Jacobean age. Then 1625 to 1649 Caroline age.
Okay.
Then 1649 to 1660 Commonwealth period or Puritan antigram.
Right. Good. Now let us come back to the question. Priti, are you there? Priti ma'am, are you there? Okay, Ghosh. Now tell me, identify the period of Commonwealth period or Puritan interregnum in English literature. What is the correct answer here?
Commonwealth. I just read now this period. Commonwealth period. It is. I'm telling. It is. 25 to 1649.
1649 to 1660. The Puritan interregnum or Commonwealth period.
Yes, 1649 to 1660.
Again, we'll go back. 1649 to 1660 is the Commonwealth period or Puritan interregnum, Ghosh.
Yes, 1649 to 1660.
Right. Now, what I am trying to do is, I am repeating the same question again and again, asking you to read the same information again and again, so that what will happen, you will by heart or you will at least remember this information. Let me tell you once again, this is not mathematics. English literature mostly depends upon your recall capacity or recalling capacity in examinations. These are facts, not logical reasoning. Nothing is there in English literature. If you remember few areas and if you can recall those areas in examination, you are going to clear the exam. They are not going to ask you analytical questions, what you call reasoning and logical questions in this literature part. Simply it's based upon facts. What are the facts we have to learn? We should know the years, we should know the names of the periods, we should know the works associated to the period, we should know the famous figures or literary figures in that period and famous work of arts and some terminology of that work of art being used in those works of art in that particular age. If you can connect all these pieces of information to one age, there ends the matter for the preparation of English literature. And then comes the text. They may ask you a question from the text, not like who is the author, who is the writer of the text. They will ask you the character. They may ask you the dialogues spoken by the characters, or to keep it to make it very, very difficult, they will ask you which character spoke this conversation or this dialogue to which character. So if we don't read the text thoroughly, there only we get problem to such kind of in-depth questions. Otherwise 75 to 80% of the questions are superficial in nature. They will ask you generally from the main areas only. Only 20% of questions will go deep into the subject and they will try to test whether you have read the comprehensive reading, thorough reading, or just only the outline you have read of the text. That comes under the 20% of the question paper. So don't have to worry. So now let us go to the next type of period or next period. Priti, am I audible to you? You are not audible to me?
Yes, sir.
Are you? Okay, right, fine. So can you again recollect and can you tell me the periods till?
Dates of those periods, sir.
Yes, dates and the names of the periods.
Yes, sir. I remember. 450 to 1066 Old English literature,
Good.
1066 to 1500 Middle English literature, then 1500 to 1660 the Renaissance period, then 1558 to 1603 Elizabethan age,
Correct.
1603 to 1625 Jacobean age.
25. Correct. Next.
1625 to 1650 Caroline age,
49.
49 Caroline age, then 1649 to 1660 Commonwealth period.
Good. So only one correction, right? Otherwise, absolutely perfect. Okay. Ghoshji, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Last question, then we'll go to the next topic. You look at the screen. Look at the screen. Elizabethan age, Jacobean age, Caroline age, Commonwealth period. This is a sequence for the Renaissance or early modern. Priti, can you see the screen? Elizabethan age, Jacobean age, Caroline age, and Commonwealth period, also known as Puritan interregnum. Last question, then we'll go to the next part in this class. Ghoshji, tell me, what are the ages and the sequence under the Renaissance?
From the beginning, will I tell?
No, only Renaissance, the early modern period. Sequence of different ages at different periods under the Renaissance. Starting with Elizabethan age.
Elizabethan age, then Caroline age.
Okay. We'll go back. See, Elizabethan, Jacobean, Caroline, and then now the technique I'll tell you. Listen here. See here. Wait a minute, I'll erase. How to remember this one, correct? You want? Ghosh?
EJC.
E, then J, C, and remember P. EJCP. Elizabethan, Jacobean, Caroline, and Puritan interregnum. And this Puritan interregnum is also known as Commonwealth period.
Yes.
So what is the acronym? EJCP. EJCP or EJCC. Elizabethan period, Jacobean period, Caroline period, and Puritan interregnum. Okay.
Yes.
EJCP. EJCP. Right. In that way only you can remember. Let us go to the next part of this class. It is Middle English period. So today we are going to complete Old English period and Middle English period. So Middle English period begins from 1066 AD to 1500 AD. That comes under Middle English period. So after the William the Conqueror or William of the Normandy conquered England, then after the Battle of Hastings, then the Middle English period starts. Or the history in the Middle English period starts. What goes? Okay. So in 1066 invasion of England by William the Conqueror. Before this William the Conqueror invaded the England, the Anglo-Saxons were ruling. 1066 to 1350, it is known as Anglo-Norman period. That means even this 1066 to 1500 period, Middle English period, is again subdivided into two categories or two ages. 1066 to 1350 is the known as Anglo-Norman period. Anglo-Saxon period is the Old English period, 450 to 1066. In the Middle English period, 1066 to 1350 is known as Anglo-Norman period because William the Normandy conquered this England and he ruled. So that's why it is known as Anglo-Norman period, and the period is 1066 to 1350. Then from 1066 to 1400 is also known as French period or French period. So remember this one, Anglo-Norman period is 1066 to 1350. Then what is actually in those days was feudalism. And then the French literature influence came, and romantic tales of love and adventure are part of the English literature. So the literature was influenced largely by the French literature, because when the French people conquered this land, they brought not only the weapons and all those things, they brought even their ideologies, their philosophies, and even their French literature also into the English. So English literature was highly influenced by French literature, and mostly romantic tales of love and adventure were part of the French literature in those days. And then what happened in England? Black Death happened. So millions of people were killed or were dead in between 1346 to 1353. There are two Black Deaths comes, two pandemics happened, and in this period church became dominant. That means the Christian church was dominant, it was ruling the kingdom, or the kings were under the domination of the church. And these are the days where the miracle plays, mystery plays, and morality plays came into the limelight. Now Goshi, can you remember what is a miracle play?
Miracle play, actually, these plays are based on Bible, I think.
Right. So now in the previous classes we studied the literary terms, correct?
Yes, sir.
So in those terms we studied what is a drama and the evolution of drama. So the drama evolved from the miracle plays to mystery plays to morality plays, and then comes to the drama. So now we have to associate what we learned in the previous class to this present class. So what is the miracle play? Priti ma'am? Miracle plays are the miracle plays stories about the saints. Mystery plays are the plays about the birth of the Christ, or the life associated with the Jesus Christ, mostly from the Old Testament and the New Testament. Morality plays are the stories where they depict the virtues as characters in these stories. Did you recollect now, Ghosh?
Yes, sir. Now I can remember.
So we have to associate whatever we learnt in the previous class and whatever you are learning in the present class. So now let us...
Can you explain feudalism again? Once again, feudalism.
Feudalism means like, those days kings were ruling and they were dominant, land was under their control. So people were almost all working like slaves under these landlords. Feudalism. Feudalistic society. It is mostly feudalistic society. The lower status of the society have no rights. Whatever the kings and queens, whatever they do, they have to accept it. There is no democracy. There is no idea about freedom and integrity and all those things in those days.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now let us go to the next slide. Where am I? Okay, right. Now, what is the history of language, English language in the Middle English period? English language becomes simple. In the Old English, the language used in the Old English period was very difficult to understand, and it is almost all impossible to understand. But during this Middle English period, the French influence came and the French ideologies came, and English language become simple so that they can understand. When you read a Middle English literature, you can understand. If you have the reference and paraphrases, you can understand the Middle English period's literature, but it is quite impossible to understand the Old English literature. And Hastings, Normans and Saxons united. England was into pieces, UK was into pieces, there were a lot of fightings, battles were going on. But in the Middle English period, what happened? The Hastings, Normans and Saxons united, and that made the peace, that made the land to become peace and to strive or struggle for development. When there is a peace in the land, then the literature will also flourish in that land. And they absorbed French, dropped Teutonic inflections. That means they were using this kind of Teutonic inflections in the literature part. They dropped the Teutonic inflections, tribal stories, all those things, and they absorbed French as a language in the England. And it is a bringing of Roman civilization to England. So when these Anglo-Saxons, Normans and all those people, when they were living in peace together, then they start bringing the Roman civilization, their culture, their ideologies into their land. So Rome was very developed in those days, and Rome was dominating the European part of the country. So they got influenced by the Roman civilization, and they want to develop the England also. And the sense of growth of nationality, until then they were all divided into small groups: Anglos, Saxons, Angles, Normans, Hastings. But in this era, or in this period, what happened, they all started living together and they developed a sense of nationality. So they had slowly forgotten and lost their difference, and they become one nation. The growth of nationality and centralized government developed during Middle English period, and new language and new literature entered. And the birth of this new language and new kind of literature starts from the Chaucer. So the birth of Chaucer is very important, a remarkable incident or event in the Middle English period. And the Chaucer's birth is 1340. It is debatable. Somebody says it is not 1340. He was born in 1350. But in examination reference, if you get 1340, select that answer. So Chaucer was born in the Middle English period, and the age and the year is 1340. Okay, then what type of or what kind of literature is or was written in the Middle English period? Now, if you talk about literature, the literature was primarily focused for lower class people. If you remember the old English literature, that is meant for aristocracy, kings and queens and royal people. But this literature in the Middle English period, when they started writing miracle plays, mystery plays, morality plays, and when they were writing this literature showing that content, their main focus was the lower class people, because the shift has begun from the kings or royal families to the lower class people. I mean to say, the history, if we discuss the history, people in the lower classes, they started getting chance to get entertained, because in the old English period, almost all the people in the lower strata of society, either they were engaged in wars or they were engaged in lower status works. But when the country grew, when they expanded the country, when people from England, when they returned with lot of wealth, and those people want some sort of entertainment, and these people like Chaucer and all those things, they understood the need, demand of the literature, demand of the entertainment for the lower class people, and then they started writing literature which suits to the lower class people. Okay, and then we have few books: Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, author is not known, unknown author. And then in the 14th century, chivalric romance in Middle English. Mostly the 14th century literature or the Middle English literature is about the chivalric romance. Those knights, those warriors, what they did in the war, how they conquered the foreign lands, all those things were part of the Middle English period. And then we come to age of Chaucer. 1350 to 1400 is known as the age of Chaucer. Age of Chaucer is part of the Middle English period. So Chaucer comes in the Middle English period. Am I audible, Ghosh?
I can hear you.
Chaucer comes in which period? Old English period or Middle English period?
Middle English period.
Alright. And what is the age of Chaucer?
This is 1350 to 1400.
Alright. So in examination, they may ask you a question, the age of Chaucer, and they'll give you 4 options. And the 1350 to 1400 is the age of Chaucer, and the birth of Chaucer is 1340 to 1400. So you have to remember this little difference in the information. The birth of Chaucer is 1350 to 1400, and the age of Chaucer is 1350 to 1400. What is the birth? 1340 is the birth of Chaucer, and the age of Chaucer is 1350 to 1400. These are debatable, different books present different information, but this one I took from the competitive exams question papers information only. Okay. Now,
Yes.
14th century, what happened? Decline of feudalism. When people from England or the Anglo-Saxon land, when they united, when they traveled into foreign countries, foreign lands, they returned, they amassed wealth, they returned with that wealth, and when they have money in their hands, slowly they started shifting from this feudalism. Instead of working under the feudal lords, they started working under, not working under anybody. So there is a slow decline of feudalism in the 14th century. And then we have 1382 in John Wycliffe's translation of Bible into English from Latin. This is one of the most important questions in English literature. Who translated the Bible first from Latin to English It is John Wycliffe, and the year is 1382. He translated the Bible from Latin to English. But in which language the original Bible was written, Ghosh?
In which language?
Hebrew.
Hebrew.
The original Bible was written in Hebrew language, and there are 3-4 people who translated Bible. Okay, first one is John Wycliffe. He translated the Bible into English from which language?
Latin.
Latin language. Okay, so I am just giving you the pieces of information which may come in exam. Okay, not like explaining things which are not coming or mostly not come in the examination. Then comes we have Geoffrey Chaucer. Okay, and age of Chaucer we call 14th century AD. So Chaucer belongs to which century, Ghosh?
14th century AD.
So they will give you a question. What is the century of Chaucer? Geoffrey Chaucer's century. 13th century, 14th century, 15th century, 16th century. So what is the right option?
14th century.
14th century. And he is considered as the first poet in English literature. Who is the first poet in English literature?
Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer.
Geoffrey Chaucer. And he is also known as Prince of Plagiarists. What is Prince of Plagiarists or plagiarism? Copying other works and claims them as their own. So Chaucer is a copycat. He copied many themes, many stories from different literatures, and he says that it is his own writing. So copying was done even by Chaucer also in the beginning, in the Middle English age. So question is, who is known as Prince of Plagiarists? Geoffrey Chaucer. Who is Prince of Plagiarists, Ghosh?
Geoffrey Chaucer.
Geoffrey Chaucer. What is plagiarism?
Copying the others' materials, other writings, and printing down. Copying other writings actually.
Right. And he introduced heroic couplet into English literature. Who introduced heroic couplet in English literature?
It is Chaucer.
Right. So Geoffrey Chaucer is a very stalwart or a very important figure, literary figure in Middle English period, and his period is, what is the period mentioned for the Geoffrey Chaucer? 1350 to 1400, and he is the first poet in English literature, and he belongs to the 14th century AD, and he is known as Prince of Plagiarists, and he is the one who introduced the heroic couplet into the English literature. These are the direct questions from Chaucer. Okay, then what is the Chaucer's contribution to the English literature? Okay, so now if you see on the screen, the Chaucer's contribution to the English literature, I have written the important points. He had written the very famous book or work of art in English literature, and the name of the book is the Canterbury Tales. What is the name of the book?
Canterbury Tales, which is published in 1385.
1385. So in exam they may ask you who is the author of the Canterbury Tales, and it is Geoffrey Chaucer. And when was the book published? It was published in 1385. And then he had written few more books. The Book of the Duchess. What is the name of the book written by Geoffrey Chaucer?
The Book of the Duchess.
Book of the Duchess, also known as the Death of Blanquet. Pronunciation might be different. The Death of the Blanquet is also known as the Book of the Duchess. And then third very famous book from Geoffrey Chaucer is Troilus and Cresside. This is the source of tragedy to Shakespeare. Now in examination point of view, they will ask you which work of art is not authored by Geoffrey Chaucer. They will give you 4 options. First one, the Canterbury Tales. Second one, the Book of the Duchess. Third one is Troilus and Cresside. Fourth one is Hamlet. Which one is the right option? Hamlet. But the question will not be that much easy. They will give you Beowulf or something. Okay. Now what is the Canterbury Tale? Only introduction. I am not going to explain the Canterbury Tale. It is 7:56. I'll just take 5 minutes. We'll close the class. Okay. What is Canterbury Tales? It is a collection of 24 stories. How many stories?
24 stories.
24 stories. It is a collection of 24 stories that runs over 17,000 lines, written in Middle English by Geoffrey Chaucer between 1387 to 1400. So there are 24 stories in this Canterbury Tales. And what is the journey and what is this Enter Canterbury Tales? It is a journey from London to Shrine of Saint Thomas Becket at Canterbury Cathedral. So in this Canterbury Tales, Geoffrey Chaucer portrays different persons when they started the journey from London to the Shrine of Saint Thomas Becket. And where it is located? It is located in the Canterbury Cathedral. One of the questions is, which is the destination in the Canterbury Tales for all the pilgrims? So what is the destination in this Canterbury Tales?
They are going to Canterbury Cathedral.
Canterbury Cathedral. But what is the shrine? Name of the shrine? Shrine of Saint Thomas Becket.
Saint Thomas Becket, yes.
Shrine of Saint Thomas Becket. They will break this information into small pieces and they will construct the question. So the entire story is about the journey of different pilgrims. We'll tell how many pilgrims are there when we go in the story. From London to Shrine of Saint Thomas Becket, which is located at Canterbury Cathedral. Okay, then what is the next slide? Right, this is the last slide in this class. So what we have to understand in this class is the beginning of the English literature. We started with Old English literature and we completed with the modern English, Middle English period or Middle English literature. So to revise quickly for recapitulation or for your quick revision, I'll go with this entire quick revision. So the periods of literature are divided into based upon their age, based upon the prominent figures of that age. Old English literature is the beginning. 450 to 1066 is the Old English literature. 1066 to 1500 is the Middle English literature. 1500 to 1660 is the Renaissance or the early modern English literature. 1558 to 1603 is the Elizabethan age. 1603 to 1625 is the Jacobean age. 1625 to 1649 is the Caroline age. 1649 to 1660 is the Commonwealth period. It is also known as Puritan Interagram. And then 1660 to 1798 is the Neoclassic period. 1660 to 1700 is the Restoration or Age of Dryden. 1700 to 1745 is known as Age of Pope or Age of Augustan age. Then 1745 to 1785 is known as Age of Sensibility or Age of Johnson. These are the subdivisions of the Neoclassical period. And then from 1798 to 1832 is the Romantic period. And then 1832 to 1901 is the Victorian period. 1901 to 1914 is the Edwardian period, is also known as the period of confusion. Then 1914 is the modern period begins. 1910 to 1936 is the Georgian period. And 1945 onwards it is known as postmodernism. And in this class we completed the Old English literature and the Middle English literature. So Old English literature is very difficult to understand, very difficult to read, and mostly the stories of the Anglo-Saxon warriors, their the bravery, all those things were depicted in a oral form. And the most important epic in the Old English literature is Beowulf. And then in the Middle English literature, the most important figure is Geoffrey Chaucer, and the most important literary work of art by Geoffrey Chaucer is the Canterbury Tales. So this is the information which is important examination point of view from Old English literature and the Middle English literature. The division of Old English literature and Middle English literature is the William of Normandy's conquest of England. England means land of England. So this is the explanation from my side. Goji, now if you have any questions you can ask me.
Sir, Chaucer has written many writings. And in English section, in French section, and another section I can't remember. Means, do you need to remember in 3 sections the writings in 3 sections?
Can you come again?
Yes, I'm telling the exact name in the different section. Just wait, I'm telling.
Thanks for watching this video. If you have come to the end of this video, I believe that you are interested to watch a few more videos related to the topic. So now you can check this out video or watch this one. Click this video, it will take you into another video.